Hello and welcome to Design, Build, Operate. I'm your host, Alex Karim, and in this short video series, we're going to go through how the Industrial Metaverse and HoloLens 2 is transforming industry today. On tonight's episode, we explore the healthcare sector. I talked to founder of GigXR, David Lastman, to find out how simulation is transforming the medical education sector.
Healthcare relies very heavily on simulation to train its doctors and nurses. Mixed reality lends itself really well to that modality of teachings.
I get a glimpse of what this technology looks like today with Knowles-Lee from Fracture Reality.
We can take a slice through the muscle and remove all of that just to show the skull beneath.
And I also talked to the University of Michigan to see how nurses are being trained in new ways with HoloLens 2.
We're finding that there's a lot of engagement with the students. We have high acceptability of satisfaction rates from the students. And we're actually getting a better proceduralist at the end, so they're actually more accurate.
But first, let's get an overview of the industry with Dr Umang Patel from Microsoft. So as I mentioned, at the top of the video, we're talking all about healthcare today. And so to get a sense of the kind of industry, I've got Dr Umang Patel joining me. So Umang, thanks very much for being here.
Thanks, Alex.
I think to get started, it's probably worth us talking about yourself and your role at Microsoft. I think one of the great things about Microsoft is that we actually hire into these industry roles people from the industry. And you're obviously a pediatrician and currently still practicing, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. It's sort of my proper job. So on Fridays, I still work in the NHS, treating children, and it's my favourite day of the week. People then always ask, why does Microsoft need doctors, and why would a doctor work at Microsoft? And my answer to that is that, we're facing so many challenges in healthcare. We know that we've got to use technology, and as much as we're sticking plasters on the problem, figuratively and literally in some cases, we've got to work out how we can bring in the best of technology into healthcare, and equally get the voices from healthcare back into partners like Microsoft.
And I think one of the key things that I wanted to get out of our conversation is a kind of a sense of the current landscape of the kind of industry in the market. I mean, we're constantly hearing about the challenges within healthcare in the UK and obviously worldwide. I'm interested to get your thoughts on, what are the most pressing challenges?
Yeah, of course. I think the biggest challenge for me is just we don't have enough staff. I mean, all of that driven by this ever increasing demand. I read a report recently that showed that we're 30 million people short globally in healthcare.
Wow.
So yeah, really bad here. I mean, the NHS faces that. That's a big number. Actually, there's 100,000 or so staff vacancies for the NHS alone. But as the biggest healthcare provider, we feel that really acutely. But it doesn't matter where you go. I was talking to somebody in Switzerland recently, and they were telling me that they've got more doctors and nurses per capita than anywhere else on the planet. Yet when they talk to their staff members and their patients, the number one request is, can we have more staff? So clearly just having more people doesn't solve the problem. So we've got to work out new ways to face up to the challenges that we're seeing.
Some of the new ways of obviously turning to technology is typically one of the ways to do that. I mean, data is one of the kind of key kind of buzzwords in the industry. I'm interested to get your thoughts on how that's supporting and how we could use data in the healthcare industry.
Yeah, I mean, I saw something that made me feel really old. So since I graduated from medical school, there's been a billion-fold increase in the amount of data that's used for medical research. And of course, that's predominantly driven by the fact that we can now sequence your genome and put all of that stuff in. So no longer is it just what can you capture by pen and paper, but what else can we do to put in there to make sure we develop the best medicines and the best practices. Although it's one thing to collect all this data, it's entirely another thing to be able to turn it into something useful. Yeah. And I'm excited to see what we can do for the future.
Totally. And data is the buzzword, but the real key is the insights, right? And if we're talking about buzzwords, we can't not mention AI, right? The likes of ChatGPT and OpenAI is kind of getting a lot of attention. I'm interested to get your thoughts on how we could look at this disparate data that we have in healthcare and use AI to kind of provide those insights that we need.
Yeah, and and it's across the board. So we're from electronic patient records that no longer is it, I don't have that data because doctor's handwriting's bad. We're now typing it all in. We're using things like Nuance where we're dictating and getting even more information put into our systems. But you're 100% right. We've got to turn that into something useful. I was using ChatGPT just as an example last week to try and create a patient leaflet. So I was like, look, we've got all of this information, but how do we then make that useful for patients? So we loaded in something that's quite rare where there wasn't a patient leaflet already available. And I just said to it, can you take this and can you turn it into something that a 7-year-old would understand? And it did, instantly just converted it into something that gave us a start point for us then being able to create that patient leaflet. What amazed me about that was less what you can do, which of course is fantastic, but more when I was showing it to people that I work with that aren't technology focused, the other doctors and nurses that were around there, and they didn't really care what it was. They weren't sat there going, oh my God, this is AI, this is brilliant. They were sat there going, that's really good. I can now use this and make that patient's life better. I can help them understand their condition. So seeing that type of use case is really important. And we may talk about AI and stuff internally and other bits here, but really that's what's going to matter at the end of the day.
We've got 2 HoloLenses on the table. I couldn't let you leave without at least talking about HoloLens. I mean, throughout the pandemic, it's been kind of, the use of HoloLens is kind of rapidly adopted. NHS kind of embracing it. Obviously, at Imperial, connecting people together, sending less people out on ward rounds with less PPE used to connect people together on ward rounds. And then there's obviously Kendall care homes as well, connecting the most vulnerable to their GPs who couldn't actually be on site. I'm interested to get your thoughts on how this is kind of supporting the frontline worker kind of scenario in healthcare.
Really exciting, and like you say, so we've gone so far forward because of the pandemic. It's probably the only silver lining attached to it is that we've been able to jump a little bit more. So we've been able to jump forward faster than we might have done in the past. On the front line, I think it really helps. We were talking about this. I've got young daughters, and there's no way they live in a world where they expect to go to a shop and buy a CD or wait for a film to drop or whatever. They expect to be able to just click a button, hear it, see it, do it. And then we walk around the hospital and the world is entirely different. So my patients are, as a paediatrician, they're all young by definition. Their world is not sat there thinking, well, hang on a minute, you're scribbling something on a piece of paper. I try and explain it to me. They're like, I want to be able to interact with this like I can with almost everything else. And I can't wait for us to be able to show them how to do that, easily and normally. I don't think it'll be too long before we're all walking around with these or they're on the ward. Because I want to explain this to you, and you can quickly put this on, and then we can interact with you in a way that will make it a lot more engaging, help you understand your own condition and what we need to do to fix it.
I think that's one of the kind of powerful things about the HoloLens. I mean, the most basic and common scenario is, as I mentioned, that remote assistance scenario, but being a 3D rendering device, it's funny in healthcare and many other industries, we do all this 3D work with CT and various other mediums to create 3D models, but then visualize them on 2D screens. But with a HoloLens, obviously you could bring it into the room and visualize, a piece of anatomy or something in real time, either for training or of course for patient kind of education as well, which is quite cool.
Yeah, I remember when I was a medical student and we were training, and we would get a chicken, and we would use this sort of Sainsbury's chicken or whatever it was as a proxy to practice some of our anatomy and do other bits and pieces. And of course, you're like, okay, helpful, but A, you've got to use a load of chickens, and B, only gets you so far. And as we increase the amount of doctors and nurses we need to train, allied health professionals, the ability to start thinking about that using new technology, expand that training, I think is really exciting.
Dr. Umang, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
So we've got a sense of the industry, but what I wanted to do is to do an immersive showcase to show what this technology looks like today. And to help me do that, I've got Mark Knowles-Lee from Fracture Reality. Mark, great to have you back. Maybe you could tell us a bit about Fracture and the GigXR platform.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. So Fracture is based down in Brighton on the south coast. We're very proud to be Microsoft Gold partners. We've worked on the HoloLens for 6 or 7 years now. And our GigXR platform, put simply, it's a bit like Teams and PowerPoint, but for your HoloLens, real kind of productivity workhorse. And it works by letting you upload 3D models from all kinds of sources, CAD, BIM, CT scans, beautifully created models by artists, compose them into structured presentations along with all your other media. And it's plug and play, so you can just get started really quickly.
Awesome. Well, let's load up our first piece of content. So wow, we've got a piece of human anatomy in the room with us. Maybe you could tell us how this is being used in the healthcare sector today.
Thanks, Alex. Well, yeah, so what you have here, as you rightly ascertained, is a head anatomy model. So this can be used to teach anatomy in just really exciting, engaging new ways. Rather than explain, let's actually take a look inside. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a tour inside the head, down to the grey matter, and try and explain something about the brain to you. So let's pull the skin away. We'll delete that. Now we're getting really inside the head. If you want to come and join me around this.
Sure, let's do that.
What I'm going to do, firstly, you can see the nervous system, the circulatory system, obviously we've got the muscles. We can take a slice through the muscle and remove all of that, just to show the skull beneath. So we can interactively cut through and take a look at that.
And that's pretty amazing, because this is a really rich model with multiple layers, and by being able to cut through it, we can actually look inside, right?
Absolutely, yeah. But we can go much further than that. What I'm going to do now is take away the skull itself.
Oh, wow.
So now we're revealing the brain inside the skull. We've peeled away the muscles, the skull, the circulatory, the nervous system, and here's the remaining brain. The great thing on the HoloLens is any digital object, you can pick it up as if it was a real physical object. So I can pass that brain to you.
Pretty amazing,
look at it. You can turn it around like so, make it larger. If you want to come around here, I can point out a few things. But rather than sort of look at this brain without any information, what I'm going to do is move us on to the next part of the presentation, where now we're presenting this brain in a more kind of classic anatomy style. Everything's labeled, you can walk around it spatially and really get a good understanding. But you'll see that there's a fairly important part of the brain that hasn't been labeled. That's the frontal lobe here.
Right.
So what I'm going to show is how a student could interactively be asked by their instructor to come in and show, demonstrate their understanding.
In full 3D, right?
Yeah. So what I'll do is I'm going to switch that on. I'm going to go place it where I think the frontal lobe is, like that.
Amazing.
I hope I'm about right. I think that's pretty good.
It's certainly on the front of the brain, I believe.
Now you could easily dictate your own notes and labels at this stage. So there's no need to use a keyboard. There's no need to take a break from the meeting. You can just literally be present with the content, explaining it in the most natural, kind of humanistic manner that there is, really.
Amazing. Thanks so much for giving us a glimpse into the healthcare sector with mixed reality.
My pleasure.
But now I wanted to hear from a customer that's using mixed reality and dynamics guides today, and University of Michigan. So thanks, Deb and Jeremy, for taking the time. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourselves.
I am Deb Lee. I'm a clinical assistant professor at the University of Michigan School of Nursing. I am a co-director of the Simulation Center at the School of Nursing, and then also an ICU nurse practitioner.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Nelson. I'm the Senior Director of Extended Reality, Media Design and Production at the University of Michigan Center for Academic Innovation.
So Jeremy, maybe we should start with the University of Michigan. Maybe tell us a bit about that education institution and also what you're doing with XR, or extended reality.
I work at a group called the Center for Academic Innovation at the University of Michigan. And the University of Michigan is a public research institution in the United States. And so, one of our main goals is educating everyone. And so this team creates a lot of educational technology. We incubate new ideas. We've created a lot of massive open online courses through Coursera and edX. We've produced over 200. 10 million people globally have taken them. So just a lot of opportunity to scale and look at learning in a new way. And so when the university created this XR initiative, they housed it in the center. And over the last 3.5 years, we've been able to fund over 40 projects. We work with faculty from all across the institution to really look at how can XR be used for teaching and learning. So both on campus, online, and then creating innovative public-private partnerships.
So Deb, tell us about the traditional training for nursing staff, and maybe tell us how HoloLens and mixed reality is kind of transforming how you train medical staff today.
So traditionally, for nursing students and medical students alike, we usually bring the students into a lab simulation center and have faculty demonstrate how a procedure should be done. They maybe have done some pre-reading ahead of time. And then the students get a chance to practice on mannequins or practice on a task trainer. And so They spend usually a couple hours, maybe up to 4 hours on a particular procedure. Could be NG tube placement, or in the medical school, it's central line or arterial line placement. And then they usually are tested on how well they know the procedure. So by using guides and using Jeremy's team to help us, we were able to develop multiple procedures. I think we have 15 total now that the students train on. They come down to the AR lab. We actually are training a little bit quicker with the AR versus traditional. So they practice as many times as they want and do it independently. It's standardized. We've reduced our faculty time by 75%. We're finding that there's a lot of engagement with the students. We have high acceptability and satisfaction rates from the students. And we're actually getting a better proceduralist at the end, so they're actually more accurate. So we have implemented it both in our nursing curriculum, and we're just starting to implement it into the medical curriculum coming this summer.
So Deb, I believe you've shared with us a video of one of the procedures in action. Maybe you could talk us through what we're going to see.
So one of the procedures that we often like to demonstrate that we use both in the graduate nursing program and also at the medical school is lumbar puncture. And the video actually will show you what it's like to look through the HoloLens as a student using the HoloLens. They're actually on the task trainer, there's a spine that overlays the task trainer. And then we can point to specific instruments. We can guide them with videos and pictures. We can show them exactly where they need to puncture or do an injection or where they need to cut. And so it just becomes a very, very accurate, precise way to train students on procedures.
So Jeremy, that's pretty amazing stuff you're doing with nursing and nursing kind of training, let's say. What's next for University of Michigan?
Just continuing to scale this out and help more folks. One of the things we loved about the work with nursing and with Deb is that we could help implement a solution like guides that allows them to create as many guides as they can. We don't have to have developers. Like, it's really kind of a scaling effort. Like, we set up the solution on Deb's computer and the 365 tenant, and like I think within a couple hours she already had 3 or 4 guides created. So we saw a huge potential there. So just continuing these efforts. I mean, there's other work we're doing with faculty like Dr. Michelle Aebersold at the School of Nursing, where we're using virtual reality to do simulation training for nursing students, like multi-patient training. And so like just continuing to explore these technologies and solutions that will allow faculty to continue to teach and scale. There's a huge global nursing shortage. There's a lot of need in the nursing space. And our team is really excited about the convergence of these XR technologies with video production. And we're creating an XR studio with an LED stage. And so we'll really be able to create some interesting videos that will incorporate these technologies into the production. So that's the next path for us, and we're very excited about that.
Thanks, guys. See you soon.
Thank you, Alex. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex. We appreciate it. And go blue.
So we've just experienced the GigXR platform from an anatomy perspective. We've brought in digital representations of real anatomy, but also GigXR can be used for simulation using the HoloLens too. I'm going to bring in a digital patient. Mark has brought in a patient called Stacy. I'll be having a conversation with Stacy. Stacy is unfortunately suffering from mental health distress. I'll be playing the role of a junior doctor or clinician, having an initial conversation with Stacy. So let's talk to this digital patient, Stacy. So Stacy, hi, my name's Alex. I just wanted to have a quick chat with you. Can I ask how you're feeling?
Okay, I guess. I'm just struggling.
I'm sorry to hear that, Stacy. How long have you been feeling like this?
A while. Since Jack was born.
And is that little Jack that you brought in today?
Yes.
How old is Jack?
4 weeks old.
I'm not really qualified to give you the help that I think you need.
I see.
So if you don't mind, I'm going to get you some professional help. Is that okay?
Of course. I guess it can't hurt to talk.
Bye for now, Stacy.
Bye.
Wow, pretty powerful stuff. I was really glad to be able to do that in a safe environment, a digital simulation. I can imagine for a trainee doing a conversation like that for the first time digitally would make me feel a lot more comfortable doing it for real. So that was a great example of simulation technology from our partners Fracture Reality and their GigXR platform. But we work with many partners in this space, another being GigXR. So I caught up with founder of GigXR, David Lastman, to find out how they're driving patient outcomes today with mixed reality. So David, maybe tell us a little bit about yourself and also GigXR.
This is my 6th business. My first was in EdTech, and I'm very passionate about education, and I'm very passionate about the way technology can be applied to drive value against some of the most pressing challenges in the way that we teach and the way that we learn. And when I saw the HoloLens for the first time and understood the potential of mixed reality, it felt like a no-brainer to apply that to the way that we train our healthcare professionals, our doctors and our nurses. You know, they rely very heavily on simulation, for example, to drive outcomes. And mixed reality lends itself really well to that paradigm. So I'm really excited about what we're building here. We're already beginning to see that it's driving standards, it's driving outcomes, it's got wide adoption, and I think it's only going to get deeper to the point where I think mixed reality will be baked into the way that we train our doctors and nurses. It will become part of the fabric of healthcare training, and that's wildly exciting to me.
So, I'm interested to get your kind of thoughts on the current healthcare landscape and training challenges, right? Simulation is quite a key part of training, I believe.
So while there may be nuances in the way we train our healthcare professionals region by region, fundamentally, the way we train doctors and nurses is pretty much the same. We're all human after all. We rely today on modalities like cadaveric dissection, standardized patient actors coming onto campus, building big sim centers with high fidelity mannequins and lots of equipment. We can replicate all of those things in mixed reality. And not only can we bring that type of training to you no matter where you are, we can do it in a hyper-realistic way. We can really democratize this type of training. Moreover, because we know that mixed reality increases things like the speed of learning, knowledge retention, preparing students for clinical practice, I think mixed reality goes a long way to addressing the existential crisis that exists in healthcare, where we're seeing huge shortages in nurses and doctors, people leaving healthcare in droves. We're really able to use mixed reality to answer the call to bring people into healthcare so that we can start driving outcomes on a global basis.
We've talked a lot about the kind of technology and the challenges. Maybe you could tell us a bit about a customer example, how they're using this technology today.
So as a technology company, we rely very heavily on the partnerships that we forge in best-of-breed institutions globally. And a fantastic example of that is the relationship that we built with Cambridge University Hospital Trust, who brought subject matter expertise to bear in the development of our HoloScenarios product, particularly the respiratory modules. And the application that we built with them is being used to really good effect, we think, at the Carle College of Medicine at the University of Illinois. They use it to train student doctors in a team training exercise. So students standing around a patient in real distress, seeing that patient from their perspective. One student might be taking vitals while another is applying an oxygen mask, while a third thinks about what medication to prescribe. And they see this patient suffering and they see this patient deteriorating in real time. It's incredibly realistic, down to beads of sweat on the forehead or neck muscles contracting and expanding, or the patient moving into positions where they're clearly in distress. And if these students don't react quickly, the patient's health deteriorates in a really rapid way that's very dramatic. And what we're finding is that those students who are participating in this type of learning are not only learning more quickly, they're not only seeing their knowledge retention heightened, but really fundamentally the huge value that's being driven here is that it's truly preparing them for a clinical experience, such that when they're in the real world, they're not going to have that deer in the headlight moment. They're going to be ready to go.
David, thanks for your time. See you soon.
Alex, always a pleasure. Thanks a million.
Thanks for watching this episode of Design, Build, Operate. To find out more, to catch other episodes, check out the Microsoft HoloLens YouTube channel. Cheers.